So Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 is right around the corner with the Culling Games arc, and all the trailers and looks we've gotten look actually pretty good. I have no doubt that this season will be properly animated and adapted, because Culling Games as an arc is really just a bunch of cool fights. They already nailed that with Shibuya, so Culling Games should be much the same. Shibuya is what I believe to be JJK's greatest arc. In fact, I've made a video on it. Don't watch it though, it was one of my first videos I've ever made, and it's not good at all. At some point, my first 3 videos, the first Frieren one, that JJK one, and the ALT ending one will be deleted because I do not like them. But getting back to the point, I believe Shibuya is the story's greatest arc because it had all the cool JJK moments you expect, but also everything was very clear. What I mean by that is the stakes were clear, the build-up was clear, and the payoff was really good. Starting from Culling Games, this slowly goes away. This is a good time to point out that this video has a bunch of manga spoilers, so if you don't want that, this video isn't for you unfortunately. Bookmark it for later. Culling Games introduces a bunch of new plot points and does it way too fast. As we go to the end of the story, this becomes even more apparent. However, what makes this extra frustrating is that most of these new plot points are actually pretty interesting. That and the insane influx of new characters were basically all good. It's very difficult to introduce so many things and have them all be good. However, while the premises were all pretty much great, the execution was far from it. The issue with doing so much stuff is that it's hard to do so much stuff no matter how good your stuff is. This leads to many things not being fleshed out or executed badly, leading to massive wasted potential. And to me, the best representation of this issue in Jujutsu Kaisen is the romance, or lack thereof. What makes Jujutsu Kaisen's case more frustrating for me is that the romance pairs themselves aren't bad. In fact, there's a bunch of amazing pairs, but basically none of them get the attention they deserve, and the potential is just left to rot. Now, if you've watched my channel for a bit, first of all, thanks a lot, I appreciate you, I love you. But second, you might be a little confused, because I have made a video about a pair in this very story, Gojo and Geto, and this pair is also on this video's thumbnail, so what gives? Well, my opinion on the pair hasn't really changed since that video, but now I get more frustrated when I think about these two and this story in general, because they and everything else should have been much more than what they actually were. But before we get into all the pairs and whatnot, I think I need to break down the role of romance in these type of stories. Stories that are not in the romance genre and focus on another plot. Romance has some very important roles to play in these type of stories. One is to ground it. Oftentimes these stories are very chaotic or have very supernatural elements. Using this very story as an example, fighting weird magic curses with your own magic powers is very obviously not something that is present in the real world. And other stories have their own out of this world things that we do not have. Romance is among the most universal things of humanity, so to have it in these weird supernatural chaotic settings grounds everything to make it more relatable and digestible. In addition, it can ground in terms of pacing. You can have a blazing fast story that moves without many breaks, but a good romance acts like an anchor, making sure it doesn't move too fast and out of its bounds. The best example of this is David and Lucy from Cyberpunk Edgerunners. That show moves stupid fast and only slowed down for those two, which emphasize the important aspects of the show and its tragedy. Romance also just give us cute moments and people to root for. Sometimes seeing two people just simply love each other is just really cute and enjoyable to watch. It can be corny or cheesy, but you enjoy it. And these moments you enjoy make you root for these characters, adding more investment and stakes. Superhero stories do an excellent job with this. You see these monumental individuals do monumental things, then go back to just being a normal person in a relationship. That's just really good to watch. And finally, they aid the characters so much. As I just said, romances make you root for characters and that makes them more liked. But also, character dynamics with other characters are often the driving force for a character's success. A romance dynamic is to me the top of the top for a character dynamic. Not to downplay other dynamics, but I just think romance dynamics are the special place. So going back to Jujutsu Kaisen in specific, what issues does it have with establishing romance in these elements? Well, in short, there are a lot of good pairs that this story has. By far the biggest strength of Jujutsu Kaisen is that despite a large cast, there really aren't many disliked or bad characters. Practically all of them have at the very least strong foundations and premises. Except the Broom Girl, she can go fuck herself and everyone hates her. But other than that, everyone is good. And when everyone is good, that usually means they bounce off of each other really well. Which is correct. Jujutsu Kaisen has tons of fun character dynamics and moments. When that happens, there's often immense potential for romances which stories should capitalize off of. That is where this story fails. It completely and utterly fails to capitalize on the potential it created itself. And to really make my frustration understood, let's talk about the one pair that this show actually went through with, Nekamaru and Miwa. They were amazing. They did everything I said a romance should do. They were cute together, they made us root for them, it grounded the story, all the boxes were checked off. So why is it on this thumbnail, and why am I talking about it in this video rather than a Mechamaru and Miwa were amazing video? Well, there should have been more. They were amazing with barely anything. Imagine how good they would be if they gave us more of them. They basically gave us one flashback scene, and of course Mechamaru's last moments. Why just one flashback scene? Why not give us more moments of them just being together? Before Mechamaru dies, we see him in the school face-off thing, and him fighting Mahito. That is it. Likewise with Miwa, we see her in the school face-off thing, she cries after Mechamaru dies, and does nothing against Kenjaku. What's funny about that thing with Kenjaku is that this was like her big power-up moment. It was a big binding vow, she was putting everything into it to get revenge for her lost lover, and they made it a joke, to add on to her gag of being useless. Why they couldn't give her even a semi-cool moment, I do not know. What that tells me is that Gege did not take these two seriously at all. He didn't take any of the Kyoto group seriously, aside from Todo, despite giving us an amazing moment with Mechamaru's last words to Miwa, and that amazingly devastating emotional payoff. He decides to do nothing else with that. When Broom Girl says no one makes Miwa cry like that, that just feels forced. Why? Because we have not been given any real reason to care about this group of characters together. They were made a joke. They all got their asses handed to them by the main group, and their star Todo is known for his dynamic with the Yuji. They don't do anything in and after Shibuya. One of the members of this group dies, and in all fairness, this sequence was amazingly done being focused on the dynamic of the Zenin sisters. But why do we never really get a reaction from her supposed best friends? Why do these characters feel so empty together? You might be saying, oh, that's the point, they're weak in a joke. But why does it have to be the case? And the reason I mentioned this when talking about Mechamaru and Miwa is to imagine if there was an episode somewhere in season 1 of them liking each other, having a classic cute crush with each other, showing Miwa's attraction and adoration of seeing Mechamaru beyond that mask. And Mechamaru sees Miwa more than the clumsy, useless sorcerer. Having that would make the eventual fate of these two even more tragic, but it could also help the other characters, by making them react to the cute crush and tease them or something. Make them feel like an actual close group of friends. And maybe have Uruhime do something in this story, because she doesn't do anything. More romance would have benefited all parties involved, but again, I do want to make it clear that overall Mechamaru and Miwa were good. There just should have been more. I think if we explored more into Mechamaru and Miwa just being together and their attraction, into Mechamaru being that mole, and just show these characters more, it would have been so much better before this devastating moment, and it would be even more devastating, and every character involved would be more likable. But at the very least, they did commit to this romance, and for that I am so thankful, because that is all we got. So move on to our next quote-unquote canon pair, which is Yuta and Maki. Before I say anything more, I want to say I love everything about these two. I love their characters, both are in my top 3, and I do love this romance pair. My issue is the same with Mechamaru and Miwa, but amplified, because they gave us basically nothing. Now granted, there was JJK0, where there were quite a few Yuta Maki moments, which thumbs up from me. You saw their banter, their connection, how they just relate and respect each other, amazing foundation. Of two unique cases of Jujutsu society that sort of feel alienated finding companionship. Two people that understand, respect, and love each other. Surely they build off this incredible foundation to give us more moments and payoff later on. Let's see what we have here. Okay, that's a cute moment. That's a nice touch. Okay, that's pretty adorable. Wait, where's the rest? Is that it? That's it?! So they built an amazing foundation for two amazing characters to progress into an incredible romance, and they gave us nothing. But don't worry guys, it's canon, because in the sequel series, they were revealed to be married, and they just showed brief glimpses of them, old, no wedding, no flashbacks to dates, nothing. Jesus fucking Christ, what are we doing? How do you have nothing? This is actually inexcusable. And do you know how incredibly easy this was to fix? During Culling Games and beyond, it consists of our characters all branching off to go fight some people. Was it that difficult to have Yuta and Maki together, to have them have a cool duo fight or two, with some nice banter, maybe some cute moments after? Now I know, some people are gonna say, well the fights they were in were really cool, so why change them? And I agree, their fights were awesome. But I'd sacrifice cool moments for better character moments. Or you could just give them another fight, like when Yuta killed the higher ups. First, they don't even explicitly say who did it. Second, it's Yuta and Inumaki who are implied to be the killers. And third, they don't show a single fight from this. Why not have this be Yuta and Maki and show the whole thing? Because this is like one of the most important events in the story. The entire story revolves around the flaws of Jujutsu society and its devastating after effects, and how this new age of sorcerers were supposed to go beyond their predecessor and fix these issues. Killing the higher ups is like the biggest symbol of that. So why is it just brushed off? Like, for fuck's sake, just slow it down sometimes, man. The idea of the higher ups being killed is a great one, but you don't execute it at all. And I think if you have Yuta and Maki do it, that would be great for them and show their connection. There just really is no excuse for putting no emphasis on these characters. JJK Zero's fun teasing and clear connection were so good. I just don't understand why they abandoned it completely. It's even more of a slap in the face when it turned out to be canon off screen. That means they knew these two were good and thought them together would be the right move, but just didn't want to do it in the main story. Again, having these two have more moments in a romance would be so beneficial to ground how chaotic the latter half of JJK was. It would give us a breather and have something just nice and simple for the audience that's just not constant fight after fight. I know there's someone that's gonna say Yuta already has Rika, and like, come on guys, Yuta will always love Rika and vice versa, but he's gonna move on, let's be real. Also, if you say Nobara and Maki, I'm not taking you seriously. They talk like 2 times and it's clear it's a nice fun friendship. Same principle with Yuta and Inumaki. Now going to some more ambiguous territory, and that is a non-canon world. Now I usually don't like going into this realm because I feel like it's not really necessary. Non-canon pairs kind of play by different rules, as it is entirely based on premise and concepts rather than actual execution. And it plays off the what if game a lot, which when you do that you can basically just say anything. I feel like it's just a different sphere than what I usually talk about. However, there are exceptions to everything, and I've already broken my own standard by making that standalone Satsuki video. But the reason with that was, in my eyes, I viewed those two as canon, or basically as close to canon as you can get without an official thing. Now, I still view it that way, but a little differently. I still pretty much view it as canon, but also think there's no way that Gege did these two intentionally. With this story's track record with romance, there's no way this was on purpose. It's too good for this story. So in that vein, it technically is not canon to me. I'm gonna lump Yuji and Megumi into this category and you'll see why. That one is definitely not canon, but the reason I'm gonna be talking about these two is the potential that there was. And that the premise was there as well as some actual execution. Let's start going back to what is Jujutsu Kaisen really about? What is it trying to say? Well, it's a story about tragedy and overcoming it, a story about power and its ups and downs, a story about love through adversity, and a story about legacy moving past it, about moving beyond your predecessors. The tragedy around Gojo revolves around him being molded by Jujutsu Society as a weapon of strength and status, and ignoring the person he is. Geto only amplified that with his own tortures fighting his curses, and that he was really the only one that saw Gojo as a Gojo, who saw through him, and truly and genuinely cared and loved him. The only person who loved Gojo for Gojo would end up spiraling due to the structures of Jujutsu Society. The tragedy around these two is the world they live in that rips them apart. If you think they're platonic, I'm not gonna argue with you. I've made a standalone video on these two before. I'm not gonna go too deep into why I think they're romantic in my eyes. But in short, this tragedy works so much better if it's romantic in my personal opinion. So while I love the little moments they had, I think there should have been more. This gets a little more of a pastel because Geto was alive for only 2 arcs, and that limits what they could have done, but just some more cute moments, man. Also, I know someone's thinking this, what about Gojo and Uruhime? What about them? They're a nothing burger. All they have is what? They tease each other? Now, in a hypothetical world, were they committed to make them a thing? Sure, they could have been fine, I guess, I don't know. But that's not our reality, so as is, they are nothing. So let's go on to Yuji and Megumi. And I know the first thing you guys are probably thinking is that these two are definitely just platonic. Honestly, I go back and forth all the time with whether these two are romantic or platonic, and it can go either way. But for the sake of this video's argument, I'm gonna go with romantic today. And by that, man, I just think of that potential. Whether platonic or romantic, these two have a lot of parallels to Gojo and Geto. This story is all about the new generation breaking the shackles placed by the traditional society to move forward and become better. Gojo and Geto represent the failure of that traditional Jujutsu society. Yuji and Megumi should represent the success of the new generation, which they're kinda going for. Now, the execution of the whole ending in general is very sloppy, but this was a general idea. So how good would it be for Yuji and Megumi to end up together like Gojo and Geto couldn't? For them to be happy and love each other in this new generation, to really represent the change that has been made. Now you might be saying, well, do they have to be romantic to do that? And the answer is no. But in my opinion, it would be better when done in a romantic way. I am not downplaying strong platonic bonds at all. They too can be amazingly well done and have their place. Chainsaw Man's Trio is an amazing example of a well done platonic love that is heartwarming to watch and support its story. But in the case of Jujutsu Kaisen, I really think going the romantic route would be way more beneficial. Now, I might just be more romance pilled than the average person, sure, I can see that, but this would just be so good. I do have to justify Yuji and Megumi more because it definitely is a bit more on that non-canon speculation side. These two have an incredible natural connection that is very clearly established in the first episodes of the show. Megumi wanted to save him, more so than he probably should have. Yuji is often what is on his mind the most and vice versa. Yuji wants to help and save as many people as he can. He's almost too naive in that sense. That balances out with Megumi's more dark demeanor. And Yuji also wants to save Megumi, he really cares about him. Fast forwarding later on into the show, Megumi is the one that gets Yuji to keep going out of Shibuya. After everything that happened with Sukuna taking over, Megumi was the one to get him to go save his sister and himself. Later on, after Megumi gets taken over by Sukuna and so on, Yuji was the one to drag him out. Whether platonic or romantic, you have to admit these two are each other's most important person, with a foundation more than good enough to support our romance. But for whatever reason, these two were split up basically as much as possible. I have no explanation for this. In Shibuya, they split up after one fight. Afterwards, they just go to different places and fight different people. You know what? We're changing that about Culling games. Instead of one-on-ones, we're putting them into pairs. Yuta and Maki, you go fight someone. Yuji and Megumi, you go fight someone. You get the point. Why is everyone so separated at every opportunity? Same thing with the final fight in Shinjuku. Why is so much of it people going one by one at Sukuna? Have a cool team up fight, man! You have so many amazing characters that bounce off each other so well, and they're all on their own. It's so frustrating. Megumi and Yuji are to me the worst offenders. Even if you disagree with me on the fact that they're romantic, you have to admit that they are really good together, and characters that are really good together should be with each other more often. To me, developing a romance could have been a great option to get these two together, and again, ground how chaotic this story gets as it goes on. There's so much shit. What the fuck the Culling games are? Tengen and his bullshit. Old sorcerers coming back. Whatever the fuck Kenjaku wants. Unsealing Gojo. Sukuna shit. Military plotline. A gazillion fighting people. There's so much. There just has to be a palate cleanser to smooth everything out, and romance is the best at that. To really sum up my frustrations with this, I'm going to compare to some other stories, because I know some people are going to say, well, JJK isn't a romance, is very far from it, so expecting all of this is too much. Well, 86 is also very far from a classic feel-good romance, and it has one of the greatest romances you will ever see with Shin and Lina. But 86 falls much heavier on those two than JJK does with anyone, so fine. Well, Attack on Titan is another story that has so much shit going on, and is very far from our romance. Yet it had 3 solid to amazing romances by the end of its run. Armin and Annie were to me very solid and nothing to complain about. They complement each other pretty well. Armin represented a hope Annie needed, and Annie represented a direction Armin needed. Ymir and Historia were another fantastically done pair, represented the tragedy of their world and the growth of both characters. My favorite, Eren and Mikasa, were an incredible pair that represents ALT's ever-present motto of a cruel and beautiful world. All these pairs were successful romances that gave us people to root for and grounded the story. They also complemented the story's main messages and the characters. But you might say, ALT doesn't move as fast as JJK does, which is a problem in itself, but fine. I lastly bring up David and Lucy, a pair from a show that moves faster than anything I've seen, yet they were able to slow down when necessary and ground this show. And yes, Edge Runners entirely revolves around those two, and JJK doesn't revolve around any in that sense, but isn't the point clear? There were ways for JJK to adjust and bang out some really good romances, yet it didn't. It left all the potential wasted. There's some pairs I haven't even talked about here that could have been good. Yuki and Chozo could have been something, but we have to kill Yuki off for some reason and Chozo ends up dead anyway. Shoko and somebody, I don't know, give her someone to talk to? Doesn't even have to be romantic. Why does she do nothing in this show? This is just a big symbol of Jujutsu Kaisen's shortcomings. A lot of my criticism comes from not the ideas and the concept the story had themselves, but the execution. Why are there so many things? Why is there no sense of focus? Why do you ignore all this gold in front of you? It's so frustrating to look back on, because Jujutsu Kaisen didn't have to just be this show with cool powers and fights. It could have been more, and it at times was more, but it couldn't be consistent because it stretched itself too thin and ignored the critical elements that could have helped. Romance is just a worse offender. I love this story. It holds a special place for me, but I get so pissed off looking back. Making this video has made me so mad because it shouldn't have to exist. It didn't need to exist, yet here it is. I'm talking about something I really like next time. Fuck it, I'm making a Jessica Cruz video, because this was exhausting. It's funny that Potential Man is the famous slander piece against Megumi, but in reality, it's Jujutsu Kaisen itself that should hold that title.